Indy Mogul.
First films. First films. First films. First films. First films. First films. Indy Mogul presents First Films. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the first kind of pilot episode here of Indy Mogul's First Films. This is a podcast that's all about what I think is a lot of times the most interesting part of a young filmmaker's journey, the kind of first things that they tinkered with when they decided they love filmmaking, as well as their big break, like how they got into becoming an actual professional. And my first guest, I mean, who else could it be but the one and only Erik Beck.
Bobby Miller. Oh, wait, what? Hey, glad to be here.
Erik's a big fan of podcasts.
I am. I love podcasts. I've always thought it'd be cool to be on one and start one. So here we go.
You've never, well, we were on the Face Rocker podcast, so that maybe was the Freddie W. was like our first.
I think that was my, that popped my podcast cherry.
It's gross, that's a thing.
Now it is.
All right. So let's go back to the beginning, you know. Since this is like the pilot, I feel like I can't tell my story every time because people will get sick of that.
Absolutely.
So it gives me an excuse we can both talk about a little bit of our origin stories.
I like it.
We'll start with you. What was like, if you take yourself back to, you know, being a kid, and I know you always were building things and always inventive, but how did you get your hands on your first camera and what did you film with it?
Yeah, definitely building came first, but the first time I filmed stuff was with my stepdad's VHS-C camcorder, actually the same camcorder that's in Back to the Future, that maroon one. And I just like grabbed it from him, and I remember we would shoot like, the first thing I think I remember doing was like a talk show where I was the host and my little brother and sister, who were like 5, were like the guests, and I was trying to be like a Johnny Carson type thing. But the first narrative was probably junior high. Me and my friends, that's a lie, friend, shot this little...
It was a cardboard box.
Yeah.
Named Dave.
No, what was his name? I don't even... his nickname was Stinky. Which is a side story, but and so we shot this little scene where it was like inspired by Star Wars or Star Trek, and it's basically like him, like he turns to face me, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Get out of here!" I don't know, and like I like shot like a phaser at him, which I don't even know if it was like a toy or it was like in our hand. I don't remember.
It was a real phaser.
It was a real phaser. He died. Shot this like phaser at him, and then I did all these effects without even thinking about it, which is kind of crazy thinking back now. So I shot the phaser, and then I did a POV shot from the phaser bolt, which was actually a piece of tinfoil, like wadded up into like a fireball shape that I like stuck in front of the camera and then like ran at him with the camera, and he was like, no, like sort of like a bullet time POV shot.
And also fake slow motion if he's doing no.
It was fake slow motion. Gosh, man. And then as soon as it like hit him, we cut to a G.I. Joe, which I tried to replicate the clothes he was wearing with like modeling clay. So I covered, so he had like a yellow Dick Tracy t-shirt on, so I made like a yellow t-shirt out of clay on a G.I. Joe, and then we like lit him on fire with hairspray and a lighter, and then we just kind of shook it, and he was off camera going like, ah, and then he fell over, and then it was a shot of us grilling burgers on a grill, and then us singing the song. It was like, burger time, and then it just ended. So it's a guy being confronted, shot with a phaser, catching on fire, and then a burger outro.
That's a full 3-act story.
Yeah, yeah, and with full of course, like almost no story, full of effects. That was the first thing I remember that was like narrative, and like edited it. You can't, such a hard word to say. Edited it with the classic like off the camera to the VCR. Didn't even have 2 VCRs, wasn't even that sophisticated. I recently reacquired this camera from my stepdad. It's sitting in my garage, and it's got the bag with some of the tapes.
Oh, you haven't even looked yet?
I haven't even looked at it. I don't even know if it'll power up, but like I'm hoping there's some gems on there. And then, so that was my first toe into it.
Did that film have a title?
No. It was like,
Stinky Dies.
Yeah, it was just, yeah.
The Death of Stinky.
That's what it'll be called now, Death of Stinky. No, it's just like, we were probably like 12, just like fucking around with the camera. Can I swear?
Sure.
I just did.
Did that film have a premiere of any sort, or did you just kind of watch it with Stinky and then you're like, nice, and then that was it?
Yeah, me and Stinky just watched it. Actually, that was pre-VCR editing. That was in-camera edit.
Okay, good. So that's the kind of the real origin editing, where you just do it sequentially, and when you're done, you're done.
Yeah, and the crappy like tracking lines with the cut and everything. So yeah, in-camera. God, I hope that's still on one of those tapes. It's
just great that really showed all that knowledge of practical effects and also just trying to tell that same kind of story with like a little bit of action, comedy. It really plays into who, the kind of creative things you like to do.
I never thought of it, but it's so like representative, like so early. It's kind of crazy.
It wasn't much of a. I feel like so often creatives are trying to figure out like, who they are or what type of content they have to make. And a lot of times you just kind of go back to what did you like doing in the beginning? Because as a creative, like a filmmaker, you should have that childlike love of it, because it's clearly a job for people who are passionate. So if you did it as a kid.
Yeah.
So moving on from Death of Stinky, what was as you kind of evolved as a creative, what were some further films?
So the next big step in my evolution was a couple years later, end of junior high now. And it was one of those situations where the teacher was like, we had this like super chill teacher who was like the basketball coach, like, it was like social studies. He didn't care. And he was like, you could write a paper or shoot a video.
Best teachers.
Yes. So I was like, I was a bad student, hate papers, of course video. So me and my two best friends, we shot this masterpiece. And I don't...
Stinky too.
Yeah. Stinky had moved. He was gone. Killed by the phaser. So I don't even remember like what the actual point of this video was. But it was like multi-scene, like it was by far the most ambitious thing I did up to that point, and then for years after. So all I can remember is that the intro was the first Mission Impossible movie had just come out in the theaters. So we wanted to do a Mission Impossible intro. So we all dressed up in like white t-shirts and like our baggy jeans, and there was that like, so we got the soundtrack on cassette, and we framed it up in this long hallway, and basically we were sort of hiding in like little pockets around the corner, and then so we timed it so it's like as soon as it hits that first like we like jumped out and did this sort of like, kind of jumping around and cat moves, like ninja moves. And we started running, and we run past the camera, and we're like, this is so cool, it's action packed. Didn't make any sense why we did it, but it was cool. But the best part was that we had bumped up to mini DV. He had his dad's Handycam, and we were playing off a boombox, a tape boombox by the tripod. And we were way at the end of the hall, so like we didn't understand that there's like sound moves slower than light. So it's so funny because everything we do is like 2 beats off of the actual music, because by the time we heard it and reacted, it was way off. So we did that, and then what we did is we parodied, and this is, I didn't even know we were parodying. We were just like, this is gonna be funny. There were all these really bad local commercials in my hometown for like the bus and like crappy like Mexican restaurants that were like just played over and over again. Everyone knew these crappy commercials. So we did parodies of these local commercials that everyone knew and like made fun of them.
And so what is the assignment?
I have no idea what the assignment was. This was a social studies class, and we did a Mission Impossible intro. We parodied commercials. I think the commercials were like our own fake commercials that interrupted the actual narrative. So
the social studies narrative.
Yeah. And then there was a rough arc, and again, I think coming off of my success of The Death of Stinky,
huge smash.
I came up, there was another sequence where another character got shot by some kind of laser gun, and he fell back, and I wanted to make it look like he was vaporized. So what we did is we had the tripod, he falls back in like, kind of that classic chalk outline dead body pose, and then we paused it, and then we moved the actor out and then replaced him with like bark. That like dark bark that's like landscaping bark?
Okay.
We like filled in his outline with bark.
Oh, like he had turned to ash or something.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
but with a jump cut. And then we edited that one.
Was there a sound effect? Like, were you like, pew in the background?
I'm sure
that would be on brand for you.
I'm sure I did subconsciously. And then that was the first thing we edited, like camera to VCR. So I actually had edits and titles.
How'd you do that?
My stepdad had that crappy VHS-C, and he had this like ancient digital titling adapter, and it was like a little like Casio organizer type thing, and you could like burn on titles.
That is incredible.
And so we had digital titles. We edited it, we turned it in, and it was such a hit that the teacher started playing it to all his classes, because he taught like 6 different groups of kids, and so we quickly became like kind of like, this was freshman year in high school. Sorry.
Great time to become famous.
Yes,
too.
so
we trying to make your mark there.
Totally, it was great. So we became like kind of famous as like the guys who made that social studies video, and then
would people like see you in the hall, like strangers see you in the hall, and
hell yeah, and so that was the first time, and a long time after that anyone saw something we made, and that we got like recognition for, like there's like, this is good. So, and then he had the only master, because we went off of camera to a VHS tape, turned it in, and then he taped over it.
Oh,
because he was the basketball coach. He used it to tape a basketball game. Like just like the wide like camera in the bleachers to review like the next week. So I think my friend may still have all the raw footage. But the original was destroyed tragically.
Oh boy, it's like you hear about those films from like the early films from like the early 1900s and things, and they're just like, they have like maybe a poster or like an article about it, but they're like, oh, there was like a big fire and all the film burned up and it was gone, and we don't know anything about it. So lost to history, but remembered forever now because of this podcast.
Oh yes, and that really like planted the seed. That was the first time where we really made like, we had a script, we made a narrative, and
what grade did you get? That's the real question.
Oh, I'm sure we got an A.
Okay,
I think I got a C in the class overall because I didn't do any other work.
Sure,
but I think
you didn't need to. You're famous at that point.
Exactly.
You like, I've made it. So this A should just transcend all academics.
Yeah, and for years, like the rest of high school, like it tapered off. But like kids would talk about that like throughout the rest of high school, be like, "Oh man, that video is so good."
It's almost better in that case it was destroyed forever, because then it could just, in people's minds, it could continue becoming greater and greater.
I just wish I could have another. I wish I could see it again. But that was way, way, way before YouTube or anything else.
So that gave you that kind of, and especially I think we grew up in such a great era for that, where it's still, there was the bar of difficulty to create something like that was still relatively high. I feel like a lot of people could have a camera and put things down, but to make like a film with that same kind of stuff, like I remember making a Terminator 2 spoof with some friends, and it's that same kind of thing where I had like a fake shotgun or probably a super soaker or something like that, and I was shooting at my friend who was supposed to be the Terminator, the T-1000, liquid metal one, and I just took like I'd keep cutting, and then he'd keep sticking like this tinfoil, like
genius
tinfoil, just kind of all crumpled in that same kind of circle,
sort of blast pattern
on his chest, and it was just like really, of course slow because it doesn't pause perfectly.
Yeah.
And it just was coming up with dumb stuff like that was so rewarding. And I feel like, especially when you're 13 years old, 14 years old, like, wow, you're doing something.
Yeah.
And so then moving on from, the early high school fame.
Yeah.
What was your kind of next? What do you feel kind of launched you into becoming a professional in space?
Well, I gotta first give a shout out to Film Fights.
Oh, that's that old chestnut.
That was definitely the next phase. Basically, I did that video freshman year and then just got caught up in regular high school stuff. So really didn't make any other video. It was this thing we always talked about, like, oh, we got to make a video again. But it was scary because like sophomore slump. You got to top that first freshman year video, and so didn't really do anything at all through high school. And then got into college, and I found 3 sort of things around the same time. One was Channel 101, and I was like, whoa, these are way too good. Then I found film fights, and I was like, this is amazing, like this is more my speed, like I think I could hang here.
Everyone here sucks.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was like, I could do lightweight status. And then the other thing that actually got me thinking about it, going into filmmaking again after my, my first big career step in freshman year was, did you ever see anime music videos? Were you aware of these?
Were they like people's re-edits of?
They would take clips from like anime and cut it to like a famous music like song. And this was like super like pre-YouTube whatever. And somehow I stumbled onto music anime videos and I was like, this is so cool. This is what I want to do. So I realized like I needed a computer that could like edit. So that was like the first piece of the puzzle, is like I wanted to make these anime music videos.
Wow.
So that's how I got finally got a computer that could actually edit and could digitize footage off of like VHS, I guess. But I actually found I had this letter
from the president that says, Eric, we need you to edit anime music videos.
There was this one group of like probably 20-some-year-olds that like made these awesome anime music videos, and I somehow got that address on their website. I sent them a snail mail letter.
Whoa.
I had an email address. I don't know what I was thinking, but I sent him a letter that was like, hey, your stuff's so cool. I would love to like get into anime music videos. Like, what kind of computer do you need? Like,
wow.
Just like, what's the tech to, how do I even start getting into this? And I still have his reply letter. He wrote me back.
Incredible.
And was like, this, like, you need a computer, that you need a capture card and like blah, blah, blah. And, but by the time it actually saved up the money to get the computer, then I had found Film Fights and Channel 101. And I was like, oh, I'll just like make actual videos. So yeah, definitely Film Fights was the inspiration to kind of get me back into it in college.
The man with the patch is known only as the Walker. He wanders from town to town with the ability to see the future. I'm here live on Nord Street, where around the corner from me, yet another body has been found.
Man, it's getting scary out there. Has anyone seen Chris lately?
He's been staying up all hours of the night, sleeping all day.
And so this we're talking like 2005, right? That's kind of when you dived back.
Yeah, 2004, 2005.
Right.
And then yeah, just got better on Film Fights, and then met you, Justin Johnson, in person, and we did some videos together.
And the first one we did was the Frederator promo.
Yeah.
Hey there! Yeah. Did you order a pizza?
No, I've got some right here.
And I just can't, like, for me, it's just funny that anyone would care about meeting me, but I feel like you had.
Oh my God, I was so nervous because Justin was, if there's any early Film Fighter listeners on here, like, it was like, oh, this is the site, it was pre-YouTube, and like, I just remember like, ICQing you or aiming you or whatever and being like, Justin, my video's gonna be a little late, is that okay? And you're like, yeah, it's cool. And I'm like, oh my God, like it was just like you were the chairman of this, like, the keeper of videos. And then, so super nervous to meet you. And then like, I mean, your videos were like so much like ahead of mine. And then, yeah, nervous to meet you the first time, super nervous to make those early videos. Like, you can't tell.
Can't really tell, no.
I was so nervous, and I couldn't remember my lines, and I was just like, "Shut, do it, go on." And then, yeah.
You got like big floppy hair.
Oh yeah.
Your hair was
short.
short. I feel like it ages better than my floppy mop.
No, we all had some cool. I like our floppy hair. I mean, I look back at early Indy Mogul days, and like me and Bobby Miller have floppy hair.
You were kind of in your like Mark Hamill sort of phase then.
Yeah. The next big kind of step and break was you got hired at Next Networks in New York. You got whisked away from San Francisco. We had like just kind of started to become friends.
I was there for like 5 months.
Yeah, crazy. And you got whisked away to this amazing new company, and like I'm just like seeing your posts and talking to you, and it just seems so cool. You're like getting paid to make videos, which I had never been paid to do anything really creative. I was working like shitty temp jobs and stuff in downtown Oakland. And so I was just like, I just graduated college. I was kind of aimless. And I was just like begging you on email. I'm like, how do I get in on this thing? And you said, like, hey, we're looking for new shows. You're good at building things. Because I had like built stuff from my Film Fights videos. you're good at building things, like make a show about building stuff. And so we kind of started spitballing, and I came up with the idea for Backyard Effects. I still have that notebook.
Oh, wow.
That because the original title for Backyard Effects was, working title was Smoke and Mirrors. And
so you'd be like a goatee magician kind
totally.
of thing.
Ooh, illusion. So the big first break was definitely Backyard Effects, Next Networks, and that was the first time that anyone ever paid me to make anything. I think I made the pilot for free, called in sick over like a 4-day weekend, shot the pilot, and...
But you were legitimate.
I was actually legitimately sick, which you can very much see in that first like BFX pilot episode that's on Indy Mogul.
Hi, my name's Erik Beck, and welcome to the first ever episode of Backyard Effects, the show that explores how to make cool special effects projects that don't require Hollywood big budgets or an engineering degree.
And it took a while to sort of like get going, but then Next Networks were like, we love it, and then you and Next New created Indy Mogul around Backyard Effects.
I think I even emailed you a photo of people watching the pilot in the office.
That's still on Facebook.
I feel like that's another great touch point for this podcast going forward. Is it's kind of like the transition to when was the first time someone paid you to make a video? Because I think that's another big turning point where you're like, oh, I guess, am I technically a professional now?
Yeah. And that was it. And I was making, Next New was paying me $750 a week, I think, to make Backyard Effects every week. But that was just like a flat like stipends.
Right.
So that was like, if you wanted to pay a cameraman, any materials, like your rent, it was everything. So I was very much incentivized to like make that as like the projects as cheap as possible, because I would just get to keep whatever's left. And my roommate Chris was the camera person, but that was definitely when I remember someone from Next New like called me and was like, yeah, we're gonna pay you this much and you're gonna make it. We're gonna do like a trial run. And I was like, holy crap. And like I got like my first tattoo right after that because I'm like, I'm an artist now, and like and I got to quit my crappy office job. So that was the first time that
and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah, I started off very very early. I think I was 7 or 8, and my dad
way ahead of me.
My dad had a Pixel Vision camera made by Fisher Price. And it recorded on these weird, like, modified audio tapes, like cassette tapes.
Yeah.
You've always been heard, but now you can be seen. Introducing the PXL 2000 camcorder. With the same audio cassette that makes your music, it makes videos.
And so all of a sudden, the video looked terrible. It looks like bad webcam video. There actually was like a special TV.
What was the resolution? Oh, you had to watch on a special player, I'm sure.
Yeah, so there was actually a special TV or some sort of thing that you could get accompanying with this camera. But when you watched it back on a regular TV, it would be like letterboxed, but like all around. So it's like a little video square that took up about half the screen. And then like bars all around it, which was really strange. But it doesn't matter because it's just like, wow, I'm recording something. And there were so many great Christmases. I remember just like, as a kid, if you have the camera and it's going live to the TV, that was one of those magical moments where you see yourself on TV and you kind of moving, and then you do the thing where you just like turn the camera towards the TV and it's recording itself, and it creates that loop of just the same image, and you kind of put your hand in front of it and you just see that delay like a river kind of trickle through the whole thing, and it just seems like magic, and really in a lot of ways it is. So I don't know if it's exactly my first film, but one of the very early ones was called The Magic Man.
Oh, and it already had a title back then?
Oh, you haven't seen this?
I don't.
It's me with pillows.
Yes.
So it's me.
Black and white.
I'm like 7 years old, and I've got, I give like this kind of long-winded intro.
Next is a magic show where things can appear with me as the Magic Man.
Similar concept to Smoke and Mirrors, I think. And so that's that same kind of idea where when you realize, I can pause it, change something, and then resume, and it will just seem like it's just appearing there. that's just such as a kid, I don't know, do you think kids even still think that way anymore? I mean, this was with Vine and other sorts of sequential editing apps maybe, but they just know there's editing programs.
There is this sort of like universal, that's sort of like the first trick that you figure out is like that, like, oh, I can pause and like move something and make it disappear.
You don't figure out rotoscope. Oh, I can rotoscope it.
Yeah, maybe some kids.
Easy. And so I'm sitting there with these pillows, and it's that, I don't have a remote or anything like that, so it's kind of like, Dad, pause the camera. That sort of thing. And then another pillow appears, and then I make them disappear, and it's quite the video. And it's up on my YouTube channel actually. And that, like, having access to a camera, it doesn't matter how crappy it was. I like shot like a Empire Strikes Back thing, because of course in Wisconsin it's very cold, so it's easy to recreate Hoth.
Yeah.
It's similar, it's kind of the Hoth area of the United States.
Totally.
Lots of stuff with Lego, like spaceships and things like that flying around in the snow, and sound effects, and just kind of off camera. And it was great to have that creative outlet. And so from there, from the Magic Man, which was, premiered it to my family. I'm sure they loved it. That kind of in-camera edit magic. I think there was like a bit of a pause. I was really into just drawing and things like that, and just kind of art. And then there was a bit of a pause until I think around 99, somewhere around there, 98, 99.
Late, you got back into it.
I'm trying to think when I had like several public access specials that I did. And my grandpa, I think it was
all around the same time.
It was like high school. So whenever I was in like sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
The real kind of moment was my grandpa, for Christmas, bought me a Canon GL1. I think it was the first one.
Wow.
That was
you
my
started
first thing.
that was like the equivalent is like your grandpa bought you a Red.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, that's wow. Your first real camera was a GL1. Like that was, well, that's a side story. When I got my GL2, but that was like, I remember shaking when I first held my GL2.
Oh, I was freaking out. I mean, because
did you buy it new?
I think so. It was like absolutely like pinnacle dream gift. And my family, grew up very, very poor.
Yeah.
I don't think my grandparents weren't like big balling or anything like that.
Killed someone for that money.
Possibly. And that was such a huge moment, because you think, oh, I've been given this incredibly expensive thing. I need to do something with it. It really is that, it puts the onus on you to use it. Like, what a tragedy to have this thing just sit around. And of course I loved film and wanted to make more stuff. And then eventually, after having the camera, I got like you need a video capture card. And I actually I think one of my first big internet viral videos was a Counter-Strike video. It was a Counter-Strike, talk about anime music videos. It was a Counter-Strike music video.
You were already hitting the SEO, the topical of the day.
Because I love playing Counter-Strike.
Sure.
Who didn't in 1999? And so I had figured out that I could go out from my video card, go into my GL1, and then go back from the GL to the computer to edit. And so it was a big deal to be able to capture game footage at all.
Yeah.
So I made this Counter-Strike. We had this clan called Jumpers, and what we would do is we would basically just find levels where you could just jump off high things and just die. And we would just do that immediately, and we would be in like a room, and so with your clan, you'd have like a tag at the beginning, and so it was like bracket JMPRS and bracket, and so the match would start, and then all the Jumpers clan would just die, and from both terrorists and counter-terrorists. So I made this music video, like 5-minute music video.
Wow.
With like, I believe I can soar, all these like slow motion shots of us just jumping and people.
How'd you do slow motion?
Well, I had Premiere. I was editing on Premiere.
Oh, wow.
So it was a legit,
early Premiere.
Wow. Legit full thing. And so, and I also had an FTP with unlimited bandwidth. And I found that just for the purpose of being able to, send it out and not be charged for it. So that video went over all like the Counter-Strike blogs. It was like everywhere. And I got so many emails. I must have gotten, I don't know, maybe a dozen emails a day for a while, months. People asking, how'd you capture the footage? How'd you capture the footage?
No one sent you an actual physical snail mail letter?
I don't think I put my address anywhere. As much as I would have loved that. And that was like a very early kind of like, oh my God, like this is getting out there. And it's on these Counter-Strike blogs that I would read. And it just was really, it was really exciting. And then even around that same time, I started actually doing, the first time I think I got paid for something was doing wedding videography, which I think is another kind of like
classic.
If flipping burgers of the video world. And I think I was terrible at it. It was real bad. I partnered with my friend Aaron Kite, who was very forgetful, but he had lots of camera stuff. And with weddings, there's no like second take. You can't mess it up. And I think one of the last, we screwed them up pretty badly on several occasions.
You ruined so many special days.
And it was really Aaron's fault. And there was one where he had forgot what day it was or what time it was. And I had got to, and this is pre-cell phone. I can't call him on a cell phone. God. This is pre-cell phone. So I had got to the venue super early. All I think I had was like a tripod. And I didn't even have, Aaron had all the cameras. I got there super early. I'm all set up. I'm just kind of waiting for Aaron. And I can't text him and be like, yo, where are you at? God. And this couple was, of course, it's their freaking wedding. So they're very like, record it.
Yeah. Oh, geez. What divas?
Oh, I know. I'm like, fine. And I remember they started the first like song and people are walking up and looking out and looking down the street and seeing Aaron. I guess he couldn't park nearby or something, with all of our camera gear in his arms, just running full sprint towards me. I'm like, Aaron, where have you been? I forgot what day it was. So we ended up missing like the first like 5 minutes of this wedding. It was really bad. And I'm sure we got paid, a couple $100. We weren't, really. The name of the company was Crescent Moon Productions. Also, I wanted a real fancy name for it.
Sure.
So that was the beginning of my my professional video career.
Sure. I would love to see the Yelp reviews of Crescent Moon Productions.
It'd be pretty lukewarm, I'm sure. I've never really, I bet bad Yelp reviews for wedding places are pretty phenomenal. One of my favorite things, I love looking at Yelp reviews for strip clubs because who's leaving a Yelp review, first of all?
The Venn diagram of that person
is beautiful. So we'll close on that. If you really want to spend an entertaining afternoon, Yelp reviews of strip clubs are worth it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Eric, hopefully you had a good time reminiscing about your early days.
Great time.
We hope to do more of these in the future. So if there's anyone you aspire to hear from, maybe we can get them over here to talk with me. So thanks so much for listening. Hopefully you'll subscribe for more of Indy Mogul's First Films. And thank you so much. How do people end podcasts? What do they do? Your podcast,
like a little like music interlude. They're like, they end on a button and then it's like do 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 do.
Okay.
Yeah, so just do that.
Okay.
Do 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 do.
Done.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric.